Alex Thompson stood frozen in the doorway of the small diner, his $5,000 suit completely out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and flickering neon lights. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it over the sizzling sounds from the kitchen. There, wiping down a sticky table with a worn-out rag, was the one person he never expected to see again. Emma Williams. His hands shook as he watched her tired face, her once bright eyes now dull with exhaustion. The girl, who had been the smartest person in their entire high school class, was wearing a stained apron, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes told a story of too many late nights and not enough sleep. "Can I help you, sir?" Emma looked up, and for a moment their eyes met across the dimly lit restaurant. Alex felt his chest tighten. She didn't recognize him. Not yet. 20 years had changed them both. But seeing Emma like this, broken, forgotten, struggling, made his stomach twist with guilt and something else he couldn't name. The last time he had seen Emma Williams, she was walking across their graduation stage as valedictorian. She had gotten into every college she applied to with full scholarships. Everyone said she would change the world. Everyone said she would be the one to make it big. Instead, Alex had become the billionaire. And Emma? "Sir? Your table?" Emma's voice brought him back to reality. She was holding a menu, waiting for his answer, completely unaware that the man standing before her was worth more money than everyone in this town would see in 10 lifetimes. Alex opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could he explain? How could he tell her that while she was here, struggling to make ends meet, he was flying around the world in private jets? That while she was cleaning tables, he was buying entire companies before lunch? But there was something else. Something that made his blood run cold as he stared at her face. The scar. A thin white line ran from her left temple down to her cheek. It was barely visible unless you knew what to look for. But Alex knew. He remembered that night 20 years ago. He remembered the accident. He remembered the choice he made. And he remembered the promise he broke. Emma tilted her head, studying his face more carefully now. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Alex saw a flicker of something. Recognition? Fear? Hope? Do I know you?" she whispered. Alex felt the world spinning around him. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with messages from his assistant about the billion-dollar deal he was supposed to close tomorrow. On his wrist, his watch showed the time. He was already late for dinner with investors who wanted to give him even more money. But none of that mattered now, because Emma Williams had just looked into his eyes, and he could see the exact moment when she remembered who he was. Her face went completely white. The menu slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor. "Alex?" she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. And that's when she fainted. As Emma collapsed, Alex rushed forward to catch her. But as he held her unconscious body in his arms, he noticed something that made his heart stop completely. There, on her wrist, was a hospital bracelet, and the words written on it would change everything he thought he knew about the past 20 years. "Emma! Emma, wake up!" The diner owner, a heavy woman named Betty, rushed over with a wet towel. "What happened here?" Alex gently laid Emma on a nearby booth, his hands still shaking. He couldn't stop staring at the hospital bracelet on her wrist. The plastic was worn and old, like she had been wearing it for years. But he couldn't read what it said from this angle. "I think she just got dizzy," Alex lied, loosening his tie. "Maybe she hasn't eaten today." Betty frowned, pressing the cold towel to Emma's forehead. That girl works 3 jobs just to pay for her medicine. Course she hasn't eaten. Emma, come on, honey. Medicine? Alex's mind raced. What medicine? What was wrong with her? Emma's eyes fluttered open slowly. For a moment, she looked confused, like she didn't know where she was. Then her gaze found Alex's face, and everything came flooding back. No, she whispered, trying to sit up. No, no, no. You can't be here. You can't be real. Emma, it's okay, Alex said softly, but she pushed his hands away. Don't touch me. Emma's voice was sharp now, filled with pain and anger that had been buried for 20 years. You don't get to touch me. Not after what you did. Betty looked between them, confused. You two know each other? Emma laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. Oh, we know each other, Betty. This is Alex Thompson. The boy who destroyed my life and then disappeared like I never mattered. Alex felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Emma, please. Let me explain. Explain what? Emma stood up on shaky legs, her eyes blazing with fury. Explain how you left me in that hospital bed? Explain how you promised to come back and then moved across the country without even saying goodbye. Explain how you stole my ideas and built your empire on my dreams. The diner had gone completely quiet. Even the cook had stopped working to listen. Alex could feel everyone's eyes on him, judging him, hating him. That's not what happened, Alex said desperately. You don't understand. My father. Your father what? Emma stepped closer, and Alex could see tears starting to form in her eyes. Your father made you abandon me when I needed you most. Your father made you take my business plan and claim it as your own. Your father made you forget that I existed. Alex opened his mouth to answer, but Emma held up her hand. I don't want to hear it, she said, her voice breaking. I spent 5 years waiting for you to come back. 5 years believing that what we had meant something. 5 years thinking that maybe, just maybe, you actually cared about me. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of dirt across her cheek. But you know what the worst part was, Alex? The worst part wasn't that you left. The worst part was that you succeeded. You took everything we planned together, everything we dreamed about, and you made it happen without me. While I was... Emma stopped talking and looked down at her hospital bracelet. Alex followed her gaze and finally saw what was written on it. His blood turned to ice. The bracelet was old and faded, but the words were still clear. Williams, Emma, chronic condition, in case of emergency contact. None. But it wasn't the medical information that made Alex's world collapse. It was the date on the bracelet. It was from 20 years ago. The same year they graduated. The same year of the accident. Emma had been wearing this hospital bracelet for 20 years. Emma, Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. What happened to you after I left? Emma looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw not anger in her eyes, but something much worse. He saw hopelessness. You really want to know? She asked quietly. You really want to know what your choices cost me? Alex nodded, even though he was terrified of the answer. Emma took a deep breath and rolled up her sleeves. Alex gasped. Her arms were covered in scars. Not just the one on her face, but dozens of them. Some looked old, some looked newer. They crisscrossed her skin like a roadmap of pain. The accident didn't just give me this scar on my face, Alex, Emma said, her voice eerily calm. It broke my spine. The doctor said I might never walk again. They said I might never have a normal life. Alex felt the room spinning around him. But you're walking now. I had 17 surgeries, Emma continued, as if he hadn't spoken. 17 times they cut me open and tried to put me back together. Do you know how much 17 surgeries cost, Alex? Do you know what happens when you don't have insurance and your medical bills are higher than most people's houses? Alex's hands were shaking now. He thought he was going to be sick. I lost everything, Emma whispered. My college scholarships, my future, my family's house. My parents sold everything they owned to pay for my medical bills, and it still wasn't enough. We lost our home. We lost our car. We lost... Emma's voice broke completely, and she started to cry. We lost everything, Alex. And you disappeared with our business plan and became a billionaire. Alex stared at her, his mind reeling. Their business plan. The idea they had worked on together in their senior year. The revolutionary social media platform that would change how people connected online. The plan that he had presented to investors after college. The plan that had made him his first $1 million. The plan that Emma had created. Emma, I never meant... Never meant what? Emma screamed, and everyone in the diner jumped. Never meant to steal from me? Never meant to abandon me? Never meant to ruin my life? Betty stepped forward, concerned. Emma, honey, maybe you should sit down. No. Emma pushed her away. I'm done being quiet. I'm done pretending this doesn't hurt. Do you want to know the really funny part, Alex? She laughed again, that terrible broken sound. I still believed in you. Even after everything, I still thought that maybe someday you'd come back. Maybe someday you'd remember me. So I kept this stupid bracelet as a reminder of the day my life fell apart. The day you chose money over me. Emma started walking toward the door, but then she stopped and turned back to Alex. But you know what? Seeing you here in your fancy suit, looking at me like I'm some kind of charity case, it's the best thing that could have happened. Because now I finally know the truth. What truth? Alex asked, his voice hoarse. Emma smiled, but it was the saddest smile Alex had ever seen. That you never loved me at all. You just loved what I could give you. She headed for the door again, but Alex called out desperately. Emma, wait! There's something you don't know. Something about that night. About why I really left. Emma stopped dead in her tracks. What I don't know, she said slowly, turning around. What could I possibly not know about the night that destroyed my life? Alex took a deep breath. This was it. The moment he had been dreading for 20 years. The moment he would have to tell her the truth about the accident. The truth about why it was really his fault. Emma, he said quietly, the accident. It wasn't random. Someone caused it on purpose. Emma's face went completely white. And I know who did it. Emma staggered backward like Alex had hit her. Her face was so pale that Betty rushed to her side, afraid she might faint again. What? What did you just say? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Alex looked around the diner. Everyone was staring at them, hanging on every word. This wasn't the place for this conversation, but he couldn't stop now. Not after 20 years of carrying this secret. Emma, please. We need to talk privately. There are things you need to know. No! Emma's scream echoed through the small restaurant. You don't get to have secrets anymore. You don't get to decide what I know and what I don't know. If someone hurt me on purpose, I want to know right now. Alex ran his hands through his hair, his perfect businessman appearance finally cracking. His expensive suit felt like it was choking him. His hands were shaking so badly he had to shove them in his pockets. "It was my father," he said quietly. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. "Your father, Robert Thompson." Emma's eyes went wide with disbelief. But he liked me. He said I was good for you. He said I was smart and—" "He lied," Alex said, his voice thick with 20 years of guilt and anger. "He lied about everything." Alex's father, Robert Thompson, had been one of the richest men in the town. He owned several businesses and had big plans for his son. Plans that didn't include a poor girl from the wrong side of town. "The night of the accident," Alex continued, "I was supposed to meet you at the library. We were going to work on our business plan, remember? The final presentation for our senior project?" Emma nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "But my father found our notebooks. He saw our ideas, Emma. He saw how brilliant they were. And he saw how brilliant you were." Alex's voice broke as he remembered that terrible night. "He told me I couldn't see you anymore. He said you were a distraction. He said poor girls like you only wanted rich boys like me for money. I tried to argue with him, but he got so angry." Alex pulled out his phone and showed Emma an old photo. It was him at 18, but his face was covered in bruises. "He did this to you," Emma gasped. "He did worse than that," Alex said bitterly. "He threatened you. He said if I didn't stop seeing you, he would make sure you never got into college. He would destroy your scholarships. He would ruin your family's business." Emma's father had owned a small auto repair shop. It wasn't much, but it fed their family. "But I didn't listen," Alex continued. "I snuck out that night to meet you anyway. I was going to tell you everything. I was going to ask you to run away with me. We could have started over somewhere else, built our business together, been happy. But I never made it to the library," Emma whispered, understanding flooding her eyes. "My father followed me," Alex said, his voice barely audible now. "When he saw I was going to meet you anyway, he called someone, a man who worked for him, someone who owed him money." The diner was completely silent now. Even the traffic outside seemed to have stopped. "He told this man to cause an accident, to make it look random, to hurt you just enough to send a message, but not to... Alex couldn't finish the sentence. "Not to cripple me for life," Emma finished for him, her voice eerily calm. "The man was supposed to just scare you, maybe give you a few bruises, make you miss school for a week. But he was drunk, Emma. He hit your car going 60 miles an hour." Emma sank into the booth, her whole body shaking. "And while I was in the hospital, fighting for my life, where were you?" she asked. Alex felt tears running down his own cheeks now. "My father sent me away that same night. He had a private jet waiting. He told everyone I was going to a special prep program for college. But really, he sent me to a school in Switzerland where I couldn't contact anyone back home." "For how long?" Emma's voice was dead now, empty of all emotion. "2 years," Alex whispered. "By the time I got back, you were gone. Your family had moved away. No one knew where. I tried to find you, Emma. I hired private detectives. I searched for years." Emma laughed that horrible, broken laugh again. "I was in a rehabilitation hospital 3 hours away, learning how to walk again, learning how to use my hands again, learning how to live with pain every single day for the rest of my life." "Emma, I'm so sorry. I never knew." "But you kept our business plan," Emma interrupted. You still use my ideas to make your fortune. Alex nodded miserably. My father gave it to me when I turned 25. He said it was my inheritance. He said I had earned it by staying away from you. I didn't know what had really happened until years later. When did you find out? Emma asked. 3 years ago. My father was dying. Cancer. And he confessed everything. He told me about the man he hired. He told me it was supposed to be minor. He told me he never meant for you to be hurt so badly. Alex looked at Emma with desperate eyes. He gave me this before he died. Alex pulled a folded piece of paper from his wallet. It was worn and old, like he had read it 1,000 times. Emma took it with shaking hands and unfolded it. It was a letter, in her own handwriting, from 20 years ago. Dear Alex, she read aloud, her voice breaking. I know you probably can't get letters where you are, but I had to try. The doctors say I might walk again, but it will take years of therapy. I don't care about that though. I just want you to know that I don't blame you for leaving. I know your father must have made you go. I know you didn't want to abandon me. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to wait for you, no matter how long it takes. I love you, Alex. I'll always love you. Please come home. Please don't forget about me. Love forever. Emma's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the letter. I wrote this. You sent 12 letters, Alex said quietly. My father intercepted all of them. He never let me see them until he was dying. Emma stared at the letter, her whole world crashing down around her again. I waited, she whispered. I waited for you for 5 years. 5 years, Alex. I know. I turned down dates. I turned down job opportunities in other cities. I turned down a chance to start over because I thought maybe someday. She couldn't finish. Alex reached across the table and gently took her hands. Emma, I know I can never make up for what happened. I know I can never give you back those 20 years. But I need you to know something else. Emma looked up at him through her tears. I never stopped loving you either, Alex said. Every business deal I made, every dollar I earned, every success I had, it all felt empty because you weren't there to share it with me. I built an empire, but I lost the only person who ever really mattered to me. Emma pulled her hands away. That's a beautiful story, Alex. But it doesn't change anything. I'm still broken. My life is still ruined. And you're still a billionaire who built his fortune on my dreams. She stood up from the booth, wiping her eyes. I need to get back to work. Some of us can't afford to take long breaks. Emma, wait, Alex called desperately. There's more. There's something else you need to know about that night. Something about why my father really wanted to keep us apart. Emma stopped walking, but didn't turn around. What now? She asked tiredly. Alex took a deep breath. This was the biggest secret of all, the one that would change everything. Emma, our business plan. It wasn't just good. It was revolutionary. It would have been worth billions. But there was someone else who knew about it. Someone who wanted it for themselves. Emma slowly turned around. Who? Alex's voice was barely a whisper. Your father. Emma's face went completely blank. She stared at Alex like he had just spoken in a foreign language. What did you just say? Her voice was so quiet that Alex had to strain to hear her. Emma, please sit down. This is going to be hard to hear. My father is dead, Alex. Emma's voice exploded through the diner. He died 10 years ago, working extra shifts to pay off my medical bills. Don't you dare drag his name into this. Betty stepped forward, worried. Maybe you both should take this outside. No, Emma said firmly, her eyes blazing with fury. I want everyone to hear this. I want everyone to hear what lies this rich boy is willing to tell to make himself feel better. Alex felt sick to his stomach. This was the part he had dreaded most. The part that would hurt Emma more than anything else. Emma, 3 years ago, when my father was dying, he didn't just confess about the accident. He told me everything. About the business plan. About why he was so desperate to keep us apart. Because I was poor, Emma shouted. Because I wasn't good enough for his precious son. No, Alex said quietly. Because your father was blackmailing him. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, grabbing the counter for support. That's not true. You're lying. Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. It was thick with papers, photos, and documents. I wish I was lying, Emma. I wish none of this was true. With shaking hands, Alex opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. It was a contract, old and yellowed with age. This is a business agreement between your father and mine, dated 6 months before our graduation, Alex said, his voice heavy with sadness. Emma snatched the paper from his hands, her eyes scanning the words frantically. This says my father sold our business plan to your father for $50,000, she whispered, her face growing pale. Keep reading, Alex said gently. Emma's eyes moved down the page, and her face grew whiter with each word. It says my father agreed to keep me away from you. It says he would make sure I never found out about the sale. Emma looked up at Alex, her eyes filled with confusion and horror. This can't be real. My father loved me. He would never... There's more, Alex said, pulling out a stack of photographs. The photos were surveillance pictures, grainy and old. They showed Emma's father meeting with Alex's father in dark parking lots, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands. My father had your father followed, Alex explained. He documented everything, just in case your father ever tried to back out of their deal. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the photos. But why? She whispered. Why would my father do this to me? Alex pulled out the most devastating document of all. It was a medical bill from the hospital where Emma's mother had been treated. Your mother's cancer treatment, Alex said softly. The bills were over $200,000. Your father's auto shop was about to go bankrupt. Your family was going to lose everything. Emma stared at the medical bills, her world crashing down around her for the 3rd time in one day. My father offered your father a deal, Alex continued. $50,000 for our business plan, plus a guarantee that he would cover all of your mother's medical bills. But there was one condition. What condition? Emma's voice was barely audible. Your father had to make sure you never pursued the business idea on your own. He had to make sure you never found out about the sale. And most importantly, he had to keep you away from me. Emma sank into a chair, the papers scattering around her feet. So when you snuck out to meet me that night, she said slowly, your father called mine and told him you were coming to meet me at the library. That's how my father knew where to send the man to cause the accident. Emma let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. My own father, she whispered. My own father sold me out. Emma, he was trying to save your mother's life. He was trying to save your family's business. He thought he was protecting you. Protecting me. Emma jumped up, knocking over her chair. He destroyed my life. He destroyed your life. He destroyed everything. Alex stood up and tried to approach her, but Emma backed away. Don't come near me, she warned. Don't you dare come near me. Emma, please. Let me help you. Let me make this right. Emma laughed, but it was a sound full of madness and despair. Make it right. Make it right. Alex, don't you understand? There is no making this right. My father betrayed me. Your father destroyed me. The two people who were supposed to protect me sold me like I was a piece of property. Tears were streaming down her face, but her eyes were filled with a rage that Alex had never seen before. And you know what the most horrible part is, Emma continued. My mother did die anyway, 2 years after the accident. All that money, all that betrayal, all that pain, and she still died. My father sold my future for nothing. Nothing. Emma started pulling at her hair, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. 20 years, she muttered. 20 years I've been living in poverty, working 3 jobs, barely surviving. 20 years I've been taking medicine just to get out of bed each morning. 20 years I've been alone, with no family, no friends, no hope. She stopped pacing and stared directly at Alex. And you've been living like a king, flying in private jets, living in mansions, eating at fancy restaurants. All thanks to my ideas and my father's betrayal. Alex felt tears running down his cheeks. Emma, I tried to find you. When I learned the truth, I tried to make it right. I've been looking for you for 3 years. Oh, really? Emma's voice was dripping with sarcasm. And what were you planning to do when you found me? Write me a check? Say you're sorry? Did you think that would fix 20 years of hell? Alex reached into his jacket again and pulled out another document. Actually, he said quietly, I was planning to give you this. Emma looked at the paper suspiciously. What is it? It's a deed, Alex said, to my house. My cars, my businesses, everything. I've been carrying it with me for 3 years, waiting to find you. Emma stared at the document in shock. You were going to give me everything? It was yours to begin with, Alex said simply. Every dollar I made came from your ideas. I've just been holding on to it until I could find you and give it back. For a moment, Emma's face softened. For just a second, Alex saw a flicker of the girl he had fallen in love with 20 years ago. But then her expression hardened again. You think money fixes this? She asked coldly. You think giving me your fortune erases what happened to me? No, Alex admitted. But I hoped. You hoped what, exactly? Alex took a deep breath. This was it. The moment he had been building up to for 3 years. I hoped that maybe somehow we could start over. That maybe we could be together again. That maybe we could still have the life we planned when we were 18. Emma stared at him for a long moment. Then she started laughing. But this wasn't her broken, bitter laugh from before. This was something much worse. This was the laugh of someone who had completely lost their mind. Start over, she repeated, still laughing. Start over? Alex, look at me. Really look at me. Emma pulled up her shirt, revealing more scars across her stomach and back. I have chronic pain every single day. I take 15 pills every morning just to function. I can't run. I can't dance. I can't even sleep through the night without waking up in agony. She pulled off her shoes and showed him her feet, which were covered in surgical scars. I've had 17 surgeries, Alex. 17. My body is held together with metal rods and screws. I'm not the girl you fell in love with. That girl died in the accident 20 years ago. Alex felt his heart breaking all over again. Emma, I don't care about any of that. I love you. I've always loved you. We can get you the best doctors, the best treatments. Stop, Emma screamed. Just stop. Don't you get it? I don't want your money. I don't want your pity. And I sure as hell don't want your love. She grabbed the deed from his hands and ripped it into pieces. Keep your fortune, Alex. You earned it. You and our fathers made sure of that. Emma started walking toward the door again, but then she stopped one more time. You want to know what I want? She asked, her voice deadly calm. Alex nodded, afraid to speak. Emma walked back to him and looked him straight in the eyes. I want you to live with the same guilt I've been living with for 20 years. I want you to go back to your fancy life, knowing that every dollar you spend was bought with my pain. I want you to remember my face every time you enjoy something I can never have. She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. And most of all, I want you to know that even if you gave me everything you own, even if you spent the rest of your life trying to make it up to me, it will never be enough, because you can't give me back the one thing I want most. What's that? Alex whispered. Emma's eyes filled with fresh tears. The life we could have had together. She turned and walked toward the exit. But just as she reached the door, it swung open. A man in an expensive suit walked in. He was tall, handsome, and looked exactly like Alex, but older. Emma gasped and stepped backward. Hello, Emma, the man said with a cruel smile. You're even prettier than I remembered. Alex's face went white with terror. Emma, run, he whispered. Who is that? Emma asked, but she already knew. She could see it in Alex's horrified expression. The man laughed and extended his hand to Emma. I'm Robert Thompson, he said. Alex's father. And I believe you and I have some unfinished business. Alex stared at his father in complete shock, his face as white as a ghost. You're dead, he whispered. I watched you die. I was at your funeral. I buried you. Robert Thompson laughed, the same cruel laugh that had haunted Alex's nightmares for years. Death is a funny thing, son. Sometimes it's not as permanent as people think. Emma looked back and forth between them, her mind struggling to understand what was happening. I don't understand, she said. Alex, you said your father died 3 years ago. He did, Alex insisted, his voice shaking. He had cancer. He was dying. The doctors said he only had weeks left. Robert smiled and walked further into the diner. Everyone inside was staring at him, but he didn't seem to care. Oh, I was dying all right, Robert said casually. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave me 6 months. But you see, when you have as much money as I do, you can afford treatments that other people can't. Alex felt sick to his stomach. What are you talking about? Experimental medicine, son. Treatments in Switzerland that aren't legal in America. Doctors who are willing to try anything if you pay them enough. Robert looked at Emma with those same cold eyes she remembered from 20 years ago. I've been in hiding for 3 years, getting better, getting stronger. And planning. Planning what? Emma asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Robert pulled out a chair and sat down, making himself comfortable. Planning my revenge, of course. You see, Emma, when my son found those confession letters I supposedly wrote before I died, he became quite troublesome. He started looking for you. He started asking questions. He even threatened to give away his entire fortune. Alex stared at his father in horror. You wrote those confession letters? You made up the whole story about feeling guilty. Of course I did, Robert said with a shrug. I needed you to stop digging into the past. I needed you to think I was dead and gone so I could disappear and get my treatments. But you just couldn't let it go, could you? Emma felt like she was in a nightmare that kept getting worse. So, everything Alex told me about you feeling sorry for what you did, that was all fake. Every word of it, Robert said proudly. Though I must admit, the part about your father betraying you was absolutely true. That man sold you out faster than I expected. Emma felt her legs give out. She sank into a chair, her whole world collapsing for the 4th time in one day. But why? She whispered. Why are you here now? What do you want? Robert's smile disappeared, and his face became deadly serious. I want what's mine, he said coldly. You see, Emma, that business plan you and my son created, it's worth about $50 billion now. My company has grown far beyond what even I imagined. Alex stepped forward, his fists clenched. You can't be serious. You're already richer than anyone needs to be. But it's not enough. Robert slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. You've been threatening to give it all away. You've been trying to find this girl to hand her my life's work. Well, I'm here to make sure that never happens. Emma looked up at him with tired eyes. What are you going to do? Kill me? Because honestly, at this point, that might be a blessing. Robert laughed again. Kill you? Oh, my dear girl, that would be too easy. Too quick. No, I have something much better in mind. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a legal document. This is a confession, he said. Written and signed by your dear departed father before he died. He kept it as insurance, in case I ever tried to cheat him out of our deal. Emma's hand shook as she took the paper. As she read it, her face went from pale to green. This says my father knew the accident would happen. It says he knew I would be badly hurt, and he have agreed to it anyway. Robert nodded happily. Your father wasn't just greedy, Emma. He was evil. He agreed to let you be injured because I promised him an extra $100,000 if you were hurt badly enough to never pursue the business plan again. Emma started crying again, but these were different tears. These were tears of pure despair. So, everything, my whole life, everyone I ever trusted, betrayed you, used you, sold you. Robert finished her sentence with obvious pleasure. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Emma looked up at him through her tears. What do you mean? Robert pulled out one more document. This is a lawsuit I've prepared. It accuses you of stealing the business plan from my son. It claims you manipulated him when you were teenagers, seduced him, and tricked him into sharing his ideas with you. Emma stared at the papers in disbelief. That's completely backwards. It was my idea. Can you prove that? Robert asked sweetly. Do you have any documentation? Any witnesses? Any evidence at all that the plan was yours? Emma's face fell. All her notebooks had been lost when her family's house was taken by the bank. All her computer files had been deleted when she couldn't afford to pay for internet service. She had nothing. I didn't think so, Robert continued. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to file this lawsuit. I'm going to drag you through court for years. I'm going to make sure everyone knows you as the greedy girl who tried to steal from a kind, generous billionaire family. Emma felt like she couldn't breathe. Why? Why would you do this to me? I've already lost everything. Robert leaned across the table, his face inches from hers. Because 20 years ago, you made my son weak. You made him think he could choose love over money. You made him think he could be something other than what I created him to be. And I will not let that happen again. Alex had been standing in stunned silence, but now he finally found his voice. I won't let you do this to her, he said firmly. Robert looked at his son with amusement. And how exactly are you going to stop me? Alex walked over to Emma and gently helped her stand up. I'm going to tell the world the truth, he said. All of it. About what you did to Emma. About what you did to me. About the accident. The betrayal. Everything. Robert laughed. Who's going to believe you? You're just a rich boy who's obsessed with his high school girlfriend. I have documents, witnesses, evidence. You have nothing but a sad story. Alex looked at Emma, and she saw something in his eyes that reminded her of the boy she had fallen in love with 20 years ago. Actually, Alex said quietly, we have something better than evidence. What's that? Robert asked. Alex pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was a recording app, and it was still running. We have your confession, Alex said with a smile. Every word you just said has been recorded and automatically uploaded to the cloud. Robert's face went white with rage. You little... And I've already sent copies to every major news outlet in the country, Alex continued. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know exactly what kind of monster you are. Robert stood up so fast his chair fell over. You have no idea what you've just done. I will destroy you both. I will make sure you never have a moment's peace for the rest of your lives. No, Emma said quietly, standing up beside Alex. You won't. Robert looked at her with surprise. For the first time since he'd arrived, Emma wasn't cowering or crying. She was standing tall, and her eyes were filled with determination instead of despair. Because, Emma continued, I'm not that scared 18-year-old girl anymore. I survived 17 surgeries. I survived losing my family, my home, my dreams. I survived 20 years of pain and poverty and loneliness. And if I can survive all of that, I can survive you. She walked over to Robert and looked him straight in the eye. You took everything from me once, she said. But you know what you can't take? You can't take away the fact that I'm still here. You can't take away the fact that I'm stronger than you ever imagined. And you can't take away the truth. Robert glared at her with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Alex said, putting his arm around Emma's shoulders. Betty, would you please call the police? I think they'll be very interested to hear how a dead man has been hiding assets and threatening innocent people. Betty, who had been watching everything with her mouth hanging open, quickly reached for the phone. Robert realized he was trapped. He looked around the diner at all the witnesses, at Alex's phone still recording, at Emma standing strong despite everything he had done to her. Fine, he said coldly. You win this round. But don't think this is over. I have lawyers, resources, connections you can't imagine. And we have the truth, Emma said simply. And sometimes that's enough. Robert stormed toward the door, but before he left, he turned back one more time. You think you're heroes now? You think this is a happy ending? Look around, Emma. You're still a waitress in a rundown diner. Alex is still the rich boy who abandoned you. Nothing has really changed. Emma looked at Alex, then back at Robert. You're wrong, she said. Everything has changed. Because for the first time in 20 years, I know the whole truth. I know who hurt me and why. I know who to blame and who to forgive. And most importantly, I know who I can trust. She took Alex's hand. I don't know if we can have a future together. I don't know if I can ever fully heal from what you and your father did to me. But I know one thing for sure. What's that? Robert asked mockingly. Emma smiled, and for the first time in 20 years, it was a real smile. A smile full of hope instead of pain. I know that the scared, broken girl you tried to destroy is gone. And the woman standing here now is someone you can never hurt again. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, and Robert Thompson was finally forced to face the consequences of his actions, Emma Williams realized something amazing. She was free. Not because Alex had offered her money. Not because the truth had finally come out. Not because justice was finally being served. But because she had chosen to stop being a victim. And as she stood there in that small diner, surrounded by witnesses to her strength, holding the hand of the boy who had never stopped loving her, Emma Williams finally understood what it meant to be truly wealthy. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about possessions. It wasn't even about getting revenge on the people who had hurt her. True wealth was about finding the courage to start over, no matter how broken you thought you were. And for the first time in 20 years, Emma Williams felt like the richest person in the world. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that courage and resilience are the truest forms of wealth. And if Emma's journey inspired you, like, share. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will move your heart and remind you of the power of courage and resilience.